Okay, so the voice tone is probably actually going to get even lower now because of what time it is, and that people have gone to bed, and so their TV doesn't act as some sort of a buffer to someone just talking to themselves in a room. Um, this thing about Sarah, the new press secretary, and the C. Anders, um, I can sort of see like both sides of that, and maybe even more than one side of that, where it sort of kind of has funny things to it, and some people sort of maybe pointing out, and I wouldn't know because I don't follow it enough, that if they made fun of the other press secretary but did it in ways that weren't about how he looked, um, I think that people do actually do that with men, but that men either don't care or they don't really say anything about it, they don't make a fuss about it, and that I guess I would sort of bring up something that I suggested before, that some people's ideas of what women actually look like, I think, differ. Like, we sort of have this American society where I guess they call it feminine looking women with like the hair and the makeup and the nails and stuff, that's sort of like feminine, and that's sort of like what a woman would look like if she could look like that, and that other women sort of just don't look like that because they can't or something. And like this idea of women being butch, which obviously that woman doesn't really appear butch to me. Butch to me is sort of like your hair is short, you don't really dress in dresses and things like that, and you kind of like carry yourself off as more what people would perceive as sort of a masculine or a male sort of manner. That's kind of like butch to me. And I think, from my sort of like recall, that in a natural state that a lot of women, that's actually how they are. And that men sort of like that. And I don't know, maybe we were all messed up or something by the American standards when we were here, where men often had, sort of like long hair and they grew sort of like peacocks, and women weren't really like that. Like, women were more, um, rough and tumble, I guess. Maybe sort of like in a natural wilderness state, that it's sort of like better for women to be like that because normally they don't have sort of the physical presence and strength that men have. So if they were sort of like these thin, you know, pretty girls, that it wouldn't really be good um, in terms of handling men and men's sort of like sexuality, which seems to be, a little bit more out there than women are. Like, men sort of have to be taught to not, um, become aroused all the time and, want to go around planting all this seed. Whereas I don't think in nature that women are generally like that. I think that women here have kind of like become like that, but I don't really think in a natural state they are. I think they're more sort of like a protective, lion type of thing. And especially when they have children, that they're sort of, a little bit more aggressive than men are. And this thing with the transgender, I think some people are sort of like mixing up what people are talking about. It's sort of when people are having this, as people are calling it, awakening state, and they have all these previously, that you're sort of like accepting both sides of yourself, and you're kind of like going back and forth, and you're identifying sort of with one way that some people perceive as being male or female, and you're allowing yourself to have that and not be sort of locked into sort of gender roles that are made up. Um, I think in a culture that um, people do sort of prefer that there's kind of some sort of gender roles. I mean, I don't think I would want to live in a society where there's absolutely no gender roles. That would be, I don't know if that would work sexually. And so I think we kind of sometimes in a period where we're either being oppressed a lot, or we're being degraded, or we're being repressed and enslaved, that we kind of can have these pendulum swings where we kind of push the limit on purpose, and to kind of, to make people think. Or we're just sort of like adjusting within ourselves what we are. We're sort of like, it's like a fun thing where you're rejecting certain things, and then kind of being like, maybe I'm a little bit overreactive, and then you sort of go, well, maybe I kind of like some of these gender roles, like men take care of women and things like that, or whatever the case may be, that you go through these extremes sometimes before you settle into kind of what feels good to you. One of the things that I sort of liked when I thought I was in a relationship with a woman is that I felt sort of like, I guess more myself, because I kind of identify more with that time in my life. I identify, I guess, more as sort of being like a male. There's things that I like about it, but it's not like now as I am that I would want to be a male. But I think that if I was a male, that I would be happy in that state. I wouldn't be like feeling not like in myself, I guess is what I'm saying. I wouldn't be like, oh, I feel too big and stuff like that. I one funny thing, kind of like in this cycle, is that for a time in my life, I actually felt like that. Like I felt like I was like bigger than I was. I don't know how to explain it, but I think a lot of that was because of abuse that I was suffering, where people were giving me like a body dysmorphic because of the things they were saying to me. I don't think that I like actually would have thought that otherwise. I think I would have just kind of like flowed into this. And I think that some of the things that I felt sort of uncomfortable about growing up here are not really exactly that I would be wanting to be a man, or even wanting to be homosexual, but that I sort of reject this society. Like it didn't feel comfortable to me. And I don't know if we're seeing more of that, or what's going on with that. I do think that we get sort of a really skewed perception of our own society by the television, because I think that the television is kind of like perpetuating this really weird gender thing that I don't think really exists out here from what I've seen. I mean, I don't meet a lot of women who have on full face makeup and like their hair done like that and hairspray and dresses and things. Like people around here don't dress like that. Um, I know in Florida there was like a little bit more of that, but it wasn't. I don't even think then that it was, all of the people. Like, um, I think some of maybe the transplants that moved down there or people that were working in television was sort of like that. And I recall some of the women that my ex-husband was working with, I was sort of just kind of um, like not realizing, I guess, throughout my life that I'm like a feminist, and that I couldn't like believe that women were in the workplace and dressing like that and talking the way that they talk. It was like I was like, so basically, women that are kind of like floozies are in the workplace or in these offices. It was just like sort of that probably helped me to understand that what I was doing, I felt really that I was doing the right thing, that I was staying home and raising my children because, I mean, what the heck am I missing out there? I couldn't conform to that. Um, I worked at a newspaper place once doing accounting, and I remember some man, of course he was older, because usually I kind of like expect that from older people, that generation. And he was just, calling to ask some question about his newspaper delivery. And he actually said to me, and this is in the 1990s now, is there a man there that I can speak to? And I was just like, all right. And so I transferred him to the other person that worked in the office with me who was a female. And I mean, I remember it so vividly because I was stunned by it. And I guess maybe some of these women don't really kind of interact with a lot of homemakers, that they sort of have a false perception about what that is. That yes, you do or you did before we sort of, popped up and said enough of this. Um, you do get an attitude from women that are working, and they do make you feel like you're just some sort of a dummy and you're worthless or something because you're a homemaker. But we kind of know that that's not true, that it's horse malarkey. And like it's sort of, to me, is kind of obvious that something is going on with them where they have that attitude. I mean, I didn't go around thinking that everyone that worked was like a certain thing. My perceptions of that, and in hindsight, have changed a lot over the course of, a few years. But I think maybe that they don't really talk to a lot of homemakers, and had this idea in their mind. I don't know what their mothers were like, if they were trying to reject what their mothers were doing. Like I remember a couple of years ago that I watched an interview with Gloria, and I could sort of get a sense from her path in life because of her situation with her mother. And I also had sort of, I don't know if I'd call her an invalid, but she was not really capable of having children, not the number of children she had. She was far too ill with major clinical depression and would not seek the proper care for that. And for some reason, I don't know if it's my age or just my father's guidance in terms of just being graced and lucky, I never really perceived that as she should have been walking. Like that wasn't in my mind as to that was what was causing all of these problems in my childhood. Um, I would think maybe it has something to do with age, and that I have sort of like that constant dialogue with him that had I not become pregnant, then I think that, my life would have taken a different course. But my my reactions, my ideas, my beliefs about children greatly affected my life course. That it was if, I don't know, maybe I had done that one before and I remembered it. That because of the upbringing, had I had children and sort of like screwed that up, I don't think I would be able to live with myself. Like it's almost like I know the horror of that, or something like that. And when I was young, I think it was before I was pregnant. I might have actually been pregnant. I don't remember, but I remember that I had a photo of myself when I was like 9 years old in dancing school. And it was sort of like, I'm never going to hurt this person. Like, I was one of those people that did the trying to recreate my dysfunctional family and make it functional. And although I wasn't perfect, I definitely did not repeat the patterns that I grew up in. And so I feel that I didn't have to suffer through that, which is, thank God, because that's got to be difficult. And I think that this thing with the working and stuff, and this sort of like false feminism and liberation and stuff is kind of like, hopefully that's getting cleared up as to what exactly that means. I mean, if you're about liberating women and women's rights, you have to care that women are sort of not being allowed to raise children, because that's a choice. I mean, even if you really still strongly believe in this working thing and these careers and all of that, that's not really feminism. That's not women having a choice to do things. And in terms of this transgender stuff, it's sort of kind of funny because I personally do not believe that anyone is born into the wrong body. I think that something else causes that. Like, even if you were really sort of, as they say, awake, and you're just sort of flowing into another body, I mean, what is it about that sex that's bothering you? Like, because you still have all of the hormones and things, and you're in a female brain or you're in a male brain, and you're being sort of raised like that. And like, I think that something happens along the way, that it's more of a body dysmorphic, really, than you're actually another sex, because there's things that you can enjoy about both sexes that don't have anything to do with your body parts, really. And I think that some people can really reject homosexuality even though they say that they don't. I think that they do. And they can, some of this was gone over, some of it's quite really sort of detailed in terms of psychology, how that can happen. And it's almost like one of those things that, is there really a way to prevent it other than explaining how it happens? And when people go into this council that they're supposed to have to do for a year and a half before they have this body mutilation going on, where they sort of go over that. And I think what happens is that doctors sort of want to experiment on people, and people have it in their mind all the time that everything they do is normal. Like, there's never any, could that be a neurosis of some sort? Like, that to me, it's like a society of narcissists where nothing's ever wrong with you, and everything you do is sort of, we just accept that. Um, I don't really believe that those people are happy. I think that, especially a man, I mean, come on, what man would want his penis cut off and then have some sort of a insert of some kind, and then you've got to use lubricants the rest of your life and all this stuff? It's, why would you not want to just be a man? I mean, when they do this surgery, are you actually having the anatomy that a female has in terms of orgasms and things? Because a female has sort of an intricate mechanism in terms of her sexuality, where she has a uterus and she has that G-spot, people call it, and she has a clitoris, and it's like all these things intertwined. And I don't know if they're actually what they're doing in terms of trying to simulate that, but I would think a person like that would not have a very good sexual experience with that surgery. And as a man, say that you're a man and you think that your body is disgusting and you can't live in it. I think that you need counsel, that something has happened where you've been abused or you've been brought up by people that can't stand men. And you sort of like noticed a difference in how you were treated in terms of males and females, and you didn't like it. Um, I don't know, maybe it's because I sort of identify with being a male that why would you ever want to cut your penis off? I mean, that to me is sort of like, yow, what's going on here? And in terms of the females doing it, that is, like, how large could you actually get a clitoris to be in terms of a penis? And are you in some sort of delusion where it doesn't matter how big your penis is? Because I would think that that's going to sort of limit you. Like, say you're a female, okay, and you're actually sort of like cute, and you would have made like a cute dyke, and you like women, okay, um, why would you try to be a man and do that to yourself? And then you're trying to go out with, I assume, straight women? Um, Maybe more talking to straight women and what they like, because straight women don't actually like heavy men. I don't find most straight women do. I think that that's rare. And that when you're a homosexual woman, I think that people are a little bit more, there's a variation of what they like, what they find attractive and not. And that you kind of made a mistake. I mean, you're going to get another chance and have another life. But I think that something else went on there where maybe, like, your parents were like a little bit too much into gay people or something, and that sort of affected you. Because I think when you're a parent and your child says that they're homosexual, that you're not really like jumping up and down, like you're happy that they're gay and you're in a new club because you got a gay kid or something. I think it's somewhat natural to be kind of like, huh? And then you're sort of like adjusting to that. It's not that you um, don't like homosexuals, but when you're birthing children, I don't think you really should have it in your mind. Ooh, maybe we'll get a gay one. You know what I mean? Like that's a cute toy. Like you're getting a biracial child or something. I think that you naturally assume that the child is just going to be, you know, I hate to say regular, but you know what I mean. I mean, the majority of people are not homosexual, so you're like assuming that that's what you're going to get, and that you're going to have grandchildren and all of that, and a traditional thing. So I think if your parents are like, if you're thinking that you're transsexual, or you're thinking that you're bisexual, or even homosexual, and you remember that your parents are like really, really, into the gay community and just hoopla about it, that you should maybe factor that in with your life choice. If you're coming from a family that's sort of like really, religious or something, and they're, maybe not paying enough attention to you, and you sort of all of a sudden you're bisexual or something, then just consider that. It doesn't mean that your parent is saying that you're not homosexual or that you shouldn't be homosexual, but especially if you're a minor and you're sort of like, well, I think I might be bisexual, I think a normal sort of parental reaction to that is not, shock and awe, but it's sort of like, okay, well, your parents are getting a divorce and it's sort of been crazy around here. So, and you're reporting that your father is like, no, you're not homosexual. So maybe sort of factor that in and just make sure that you're not having a normal teenage rebellion, and that, you know, people sometimes can have sort of back and forth ideas in their minds about things, and it doesn't mean that that's like the type of person that they're going to fall in love with. Um, like I stated before, when Jennifer was telling me things about her mother, and that she was like 16 and her mother was like, oh, I always knew you were gay, I find that to be not really, normal. There's something else going on there. Because I think when children are sort of like, here we go, I gotta tell my parents this, or they're like sort of, my parents had an adjustment or something, that's actually more normal than parents that are kind of like hoping for a queer kid, like a toy. Um, some people have sort of like varying emotional things and neurosis and, immaturity, and like to sort of gain attention through their children. So, really waiting till you're 22 and having the time to sort that out and speak to people that are sort of older and can advise you. I don't agree with people going into high schools and elementary schools and planting all of these ideas in children's mind. I find that to actually be child abuse, because children do not have a sexuality. And at that time in life, I think parents basically teach the birds and the bees and biology. And then if you have a minor that's saying things like that, that's an indicator that that child needs more attention. and some sort of discussion needs to go on about where these ideas are coming from. Not sort of, it's some sort of anti-homosexual talk, but why a child of that age would even be thinking about sexuality and thinking about sexuality in that way. Because I think that that shouldn't really be coming out until an older age, is my opinion. And I completely reject this transgender thing in the sense of a transsexual, like having a surgery. Um, when people have already done something, I don't think there's a reason to sort of like beat them down and ostracize them and sort of like try to convert them because, they've already done this. But I would hope in the future that we sort of go back into accepting psychotherapy as a thing that people do, and we don't just have this nobody can judge me, because first of all, it's not judgment to go into psychotherapy, and we sort of explore more things that make sense, and if God would actually put someone in the wrong body or not. So that to me is kind of like a good way to think about it. Um, and if we're actually not sexist, then why would we not want to be that sex? Is there something about being that sex that is upsetting to us? Or the perception of what a life is while being that sex here? Like, is it the perception that it's easier to be a woman, or it's easier to be a man, or you get more attention, or you can wear fancy clothing, or like where is that coming from? Like say someone like Caitlyn, um, in the natural world, I mean, someone can have long hair like that, and even sort of have a stitching clothing that's sort of, like a skirt and things, and it doesn't mean that you have to remove your penis and get breast implants. And women can, mohawk their hair and sort of strut around and be, more sort of like that, and they don't have to, mutilate themselves. And, people are gonna meet up with who they're gonna meet up. And I think that the transgender thing to me is a rejection of homosexuality, usually, and that maybe more acceptance of that and less of this, body mutilation going on. And in terms of the joke, which is what I kind of find most of this to be, because I think most people are really sort of, they're not really shocked by homosexuality anymore, and it's not something that people judge in itself. I think that there can be lifestyle behaviorisms that people reject, but that also goes on in a non-homosexual community too. So we've gone over some of that. I actually really like talking about that because I think that it's harmful to actual homosexuals to have all of these confused people out there that are not actually homosexual, and they are sort of giving a perception to the planet about what homosexuals do and what they are, and I don't think that's good. I think that people can have mania and go off on these bed hopping things, or they could be stuck in that. You can have people that are abused and don't want to accept that, and then they go off and they're, acting like what people would call sort of like a fag, like a female man, and things like that, and people saying that they're bisexual, and just, they're all over the place. So I think that that's sort of like my thought on that for right now because I've gone over most of it already, and the video only sort of runs so long. So I'm kind of right now just basing things on what I see on television and what I read, and sort of like letting ideas flow because I can't type. And I'm not really into going into a mind gel with the television. So I kind of just I'm doing this right now in terms of sitting here.